Hi, Piper kids. We're back with Poppy and Rye for Chapter 2. In Chapter 1, we found out about some new characters in the Poppy series with Valoran and Clover and Castor, Kanad. And now we are going to, in Chapter 2, find out some characters and hear some more about some characters that we learned about in the book Poppy. So Chapter 2 is called Poppy and Aerith. It was cool in Dimwood Forest, though the high canopy of trees, flecks of sunlight sprinkled the earth with spots of gold. But on the floor of the forest, inside a long, hollow, and decaying log, it was all stink and muck. "Oh, skunk whizzle," mocked the old porcupine who lived in the log. "Who cares, foot fungus, about Ragweed's family? I bet there's nothing but nasty nose bumps." Though his full name was Ezerin Dorzatum, the porcupine insisted on being called Aerith, not the sweetest smelling of creatures. He had a flat face with a blunt black nose and fierce grizzled whiskers. Sharp quills covered him from head to tail. And as we think back about what Aerith was like in the Poppy book, you can imagine thinking back what Aerith is really like and what his log is really like. We had quite a few laughs with his comments. He was talking to a deer mouse by the name of Poppy. Though most of her fur was soft orange-brown, Poppy had pure white fur on her round, graceful, plump belly. Her whiskers, which stuck straight out from her delicate pink nose, were quite full. Her toes were small and her tail was long. As for her ears, they were relatively large and dark, and from the right one hung an earring. Nothing more than a purple plastic bead dangling from a tiny chain. And if you were here for our Poppy book, think about where did that earring come from? "Aerith," Poppy explained, "if something happened to a child of yours, wouldn't you want to hear about it?" "Look here, slug brain," the porcupine said with something close to anger. "I thought you liked living in my neighborhood, thought you were my friend. But if you want to trundle off, forget me, make new friends, start a new life, go ahead. I've got plenty of things to do." "Like what?" Poppy asked. "Eating," the porcupine growled, "and sleeping." With a rattle of quills, Aerith moved off towards the far end of his log. "Aerith," Poppy pleaded, as she followed after him, "let me try to explain one more time. Ragweed was a golden mouse. He was like no one I'd ever met before, and when he came here, I fell in love with him." "Love," sneered Aerith. "You can put love in a wasp nest and chew on it." "But I did love him," Poppy insisted, "and we're going to get married." "Marriage," hooted Aerith. "Head for the toilet bowl and bring 2 plungers." "But then," Poppy continued patiently, "that owl, Mr. Okax, killed him and—" "Poppy, stop. I've heard this slop 100 times, Ready, Austin?" And there is Poppy trying to convince Aerith that to go on the journey to let Ragweed's parents know what had happened to him. So, and there's the entrance of the log. You can see the size of Poppy compared to Aerith. "But all I want to do," an exasperated Poppy continued, "is tell Ragweed's parents what happened to him. Don't you think they should know? Besides, I want to give them this." She touched the earring, "so they'll have something to remember him by." "Listen, Swamp Mouth," Aerith said. "Take my word. They don't care what happened to him. No more than I do. Wise up. You have to be a mushroom mucus not to know that." "This thing is, Aerith," Poppy persisted, "the trip would be so much nicer if you came along. It'll be an adventure. We'll see the world." "Oh, frozen frog pips," Aerith cried. "I don't want to see the world. I hate going places. I hate doing things. And I like being alone. Most of all, I'm sick and tired of hearing about Ragweed, so beat it." The porcupine continued on forward toward the far end of his log. A frustrated Poppy let out a sigh, tenderly fingering Ragweed's earring, then went to the open end of the log and gazed out at Dimwood Forest. This forest of towering trees was her home. One moment it was dark, the next moment it was light, usually serene, which is calm. The forest often exploded with noisy life. Though Poppy loved the forest dearly and would miss it, she felt a great need to make the journey. Poppy had to acknowledge that there was no particular reason for Eric to go. He had never met Ragweed. Besides, Poppy hardly knew where his home was. Ragweed had never offered much detail about it. The Woodlands, he called his home area. He said it was a few miles west of Dimwood Forest, and Dimwood Forest is where Poppy lives. His family nest. He had once told her it was on the banks of a brook. He referred to it as a little more than the brook. It's a decent spot, girl, Ragweed had told her. But know what I'm saying? Like Dullsville. Totally. Nothing ever happens there. Tell me about your parents, Poppy had said to him. They're named Clover and Valorin, he said. Pretty cool for parents. But hey, I need to see the world. And I did, too. Did they give you permission to go? Poppy asked, impressed with Ragweed's story. At that time, not only hadn't she gone far from where her own family lived, she was certain her parents would never allow her to travel. And if you think about Poppy and Poppy's brothers and sisters and cousins, all of them would ask permission from the parents, and then the dad would ask permission from Mr. Okax. And so for Ragweed to go on this adventure without asking his parents, that was a pretty big deal to Poppy and very brave. Ragweed laughed. Nah, they weren't too easy about what I was doing, particularly Clover, my old mouse. But girl, a mouse has to do what a mouse has to do. Will you ever go back? Poppy wanted to know. Oh, sure, someday. And hey, dude, I'll take you there, Ragweed promised. Bet you'll like my folks. They'll think you're way sweet. Why? 'Cause you're my main girl. Then Poppy remembered Ragweed had winked at her with a sense of his own saucy being. But Ragweed had died, and Poppy wanted to tell his parents what had happened. Maybe, she mused, it was her way of saying a final goodbye to the mouse she had loved. Still, to go all that distance alone would be quite an undertaking. And here you can see Poppy right outside the log, thinking all of this, daydreaming about Ragweed, daydreaming about her adventure before she starts venturing off into the unknown to find Ragweed's parents and let Ragweed's parents know what had happened to him. It was not that Poppy was frightened of the distance or of being alone. It was merely a question of wanting to go with someone. True, she had plenty of sisters and brothers, cousins too for that matter. Still, she would think of no better companion for an adventure than her best friend Aerith. But now the porcupine had said no. Poppy sighed. There were moments she actually thought Aerith was jealous of Ragweed. Then the notion struck Poppy that it was probably nothing more than Aerith feeling his age. How like Aerith to be so proud he wouldn't admit such a thing. She wished she had not pushed him so. Never mind. Poppy made up her mind. Since she wanted to go, she would go alone. Oh, well, she thought, I'm sure I'll meet someone interesting. Besides, once I get to Ragweed's brook, it should be pleasant and calm. Recalling his words about the brook, Poppy smiled. I could use a little dullness in my life, she thought. Poppy went back into the log to say goodbye to Aerith. He was at the far, smelly end, licking a hunk of salt as if it were a lollipop. Trying to keep from inhaling too much, Poppy said, Aerith, I wanted to say goodbye. The porcupine offered an indifferent grunt. And Aerith, I should apologize. For what? Asking you to come. Aerith paused in his licking and squinted angrily down at Poppy. Why? I should have remembered you're too old for such a trip. The salt dropped from Aerith's paw with a clatter. To what? He gasped. Well, you know, Poppy said with care. Elderly. Me? Old? Elderly? The porcupine cried, quills bristling. You twisted bee burp. I can do whatever I want, where I want, when I want. Or are you hankering to turn yourself into a busted bee bottom? But Aerith, look here, you pickled tail fur booger, he roared on. I can keep up with you any day of the week. Night, too, for that matter. You slippery spot of squirrel splat. You mean you'll come with me? Poppy cried, turning to keep from grinning. Blow your nose and fill a bucket, Aerith screeched. Can't you understand anything? Never mind me going with you. You're going with me, Ready, Austin. With that, Aerith burst past Poppy, moving so fast, so furious, his quills combed her belly fur into 27 neat rows. Poppy laughed and ran after him. So in this chapter, we added our two new characters, both Poppy and Aerith. We're adding those to our new characters that we hadn't read before, Ragweed's parents, Clover and Valoran, and the beaver. And so now they're going to be off on their adventure. And if it's anything like the book Poppy, it's going to be quite an adventure. So maybe you want to make some predictions. If you've read the story before, the previous story, Poppy, you might use some of that background knowledge to make your prediction. Or if you've never read the story, Poppy, you may want to, just knowing now the character traits of Poppy and the character traits of Aerith, you may start to think about what might happen along their adventure from Dimwood Forest all the way, there we go, Austin, from Dimwood Forest, which is here, Dimwood Forest, that's where they are. They've got to travel all the way down to the brook. They might come this way, or we don't know yet. They might go this way. Here it says the brook right here, but here's where the dam is that they are damming up the river, or the brook in that matter. So we're not sure which path they're going to take, but they know that Aerith and Poppy are right here in Dimwood Forest. So our next chapter, for chapter 3, tomorrow, will be titled Night Thoughts. Will be chapter 3. I hope you guys are having a great time at home. I miss you guys very much. We've been lucky with the weather. We've been out chopping a lot of wood, getting ready for our next winter. And so I hope you and your family are having a great time and keeping happy and healthy.